Solo okay. Yeah, hello everybody. So this is the seminar in English today. I'm glad to have with us Francesca Antonacci, professor of pedagogy from our department, and Braxton Soderman from Irvine. He is a visiting professor here at our department, and they are going to talk about play. It will be a playful seminar, and the title is a critical theory. No, the title is critical play. So they will talk about games and play and how it has been a sort of neglected topic in critical theory tradition. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, Stefan, for inviting us. For inviting us in this seminar. We are glad to be here and to share with you some issues about critical theory and play and game. And we will start, but we would like to share with you also your ideas and your thoughts about our point of view. So feel free to ask questions or during the seminar,
in the chat. Hopefully somebody's watching the chat, maybe. There are people. I don't know.
Okay.
Do you want to say anything about who you are, or do they all know you?
Well, because Stefano already presented us that I am from this.
Say something more. It's okay. Right, just the word.
Yes, maybe we could add that we work together in these two past months on, of course, also about critical theory, but we study things about games and play and how they are related in this nowadays in our life. And we okay, and then you add something.
Yeah, we've been talking the last year and about ideas about philosophy and theory and video games. I think it's kind of a newer topic. I think I would just say that my background is a media studies scholar, really, in the media studies department, but I studied philosophy and critical theory as well, and media theory. And at University of California, Irvine, we have a long tradition of studying critical theory, especially during the 1980s and 90s, when a lot of French theorists like Jacques Derrida or other folks would come to University of California, Irvine and spend semesters there in a critical theory program. So it's still ongoing. And I sometimes work with that group to bring people there, and they have extensive archives of their documents in the library as well. I just thought I'd mention that in case everybody ends up doing research or coming to California in critical theory.
Yeah, it's important to underline this topic.
Right. So, yes, we'll just jump into it.
Yes.
All right. I think we agree that, well, at least for me, it was important to talk about a little bit about critical theory and just what it is or what I think of it as. I won't speak for Francesca so much. But for me, critical theory was always related to Max Horkheimer, who was a philosopher of the Frankfurt School, and cultural critic who wrote an essay called Traditional and Critical Theory, and I forget the date, but was really kind of writing about what critical theory was in relationship to traditional theory. And one of the things that always struck me was that he defined criticality as emancipation and freedom. And he wrote, quote, "Critical theory never aims simply at an increase of knowledge as such. Its goal is man's emancipation from slavery." So part of the focus was that critical theory would be, and this is coming out of a Marxist tradition, which is looking at thinking in a materialistic way or as in practice, to put in practice. Right, the idea is you're not just supposed to think about the world, but you're supposed to change it, right? And so critical theory is very much related to that insight and impetus. That's what Horkheimer wanted. Horkheimer thought that traditional knowledge, scientific knowledge or sociology or would be just trying to create knowledge for the world from an objective perspective. But Horkheimer was saying that's not enough. Like what critical theory should be doing is a practice-based theoretical thinking that was aimed at emancipating, freeing us from oppressions, dominations, whatever they might be, racism, sexism today, you know, those kind of bigotries and other things are something today, or economic exploitation, obviously, under capitalism and things like that.
And I feel close to this point of view, also from a pedagogical point of view, because in my opinion, education is not a matter of some things to add things to knowledge. And so it's changing my education point of view is not to add things on. And also this topic about freedom and emancipation from slavery is very important, because one of my my favorite author is Paulo Freire, who talked about oppressor and oppressed dialectics. So one of the most important things in education is to emancipate men from people from an oppressed side to not an oppressor but a free side, you know, with the awareness and consciousness to be free from this dialectic. So
yeah. Oh yeah, I think that's pedagogy and education and that kind of political radical theater of the oppressed is a great example of that kind of engagement that critical theory was always seeking and involved in. Yeah, do we just
think no.
So we're going to talk about play a little bit today and its relationship to critical theory. And really, Horkheimer, Adorno, other Frankfurt School thinkers, and Bloch, and then, you know, later, we're coming out of a Marxist tradition, right? And so play wasn't really something that was talked about so much for a long time, or leisure, right? They're more interested in labor. I like this quote because this is from Francis Hearn. It's from an essay called The Critical Theory of Play that no one reads, unfortunately. I mean, a sociologist, really interesting work. But Hearn writes, until play is accorded a central place in critical social theory, only an incomplete analysis of the dynamics of domination and change in advanced capitalist society is possible. So this is 1976, so 50 years ago. But it's realizing that play had become very important to the world and is becoming increasingly important to the world, and realizing that critical theory, Marxism, even philosophy to some extent more broadly, hadn't really thought deeply about play, because play is often seen as not serious for children.
Waste of time.
A waste of time, exactly. So Francis Hearn was recognizing that we needed to think critically about play. Huh. Excuse me. Yeah, and so one of the things that we wanted to talk about play in relationship was work, right? And this is one way to start thinking about the relationship, or what play is critically, through the categories of necessity and freedom, which is something that, you know, Marx theorized. The idea of the realm of necessity, which is work. So when we talk about necessity, when we talk about the realm of necessity, we mean work. That's like necessity means something necessary, working to generate the needs of the people, food, shelter, clothing, the absolute needs of society. And so historically, labor has been spent on producing those kind of products, right, in order to make sure and ensure humans, can live and survive. But then there's also the realm of freedom. Once you work enough to produce the food, through farming, or the clothes, or the buildings to shelter us and so forth, then once you've worked enough to produce that, then you have the realm of freedom outside of that. And that historically has been the leisure realm, or what would be where play is involved. So there's this dichotomy between these two ideas.
The point is, what would you do when you finish your work and everything is done?
Right.
And what's the purpose of of work?
Yeah, exactly.
So what?
Yeah. And thinking about that time in a critical fashion, what it's used for, how it's oppressed, how it's dominated or exploited, and increasingly our leisure time is exploited that way. Yeah, I think just briefly, we were going to say that this division between work and play, labor and leisure, is historical. And theorists talk about how this distinction is not, connected to industrialization. I don't know if you wanted to.
Yes, I want to add something, because especially in the past, in traditional society, the distinction between work and play, but play in a broad sense, is not so fixed, because there is also, for example, work you do for the community, or work you do for rituals that were very important for communities in a traditional society. So this is work. So things that you do for with effort, so it's work, but is for the sake of it, or for the community, or for something that it worked in. And otherwise, play in the past was not a selfish play, an individualistic play. It was something that you share with others in festivity, dance, and rituals also. Yeah. So was really different. And in the modern period, the distinction became more fixed, because work was organized, and play was another thing that you do after work, so it was individualized, and not and less shared as in the past. And then okay, and then maybe in the neoliberalism we will talk about.
Yeah, I think just there's with industrialization, people start earning a wage more, right? And there's different work becomes something that's more compartmentalized from leisure. They begin to separate. Right? And there's people like Turner who discuss this and theorize this, but we won't.
But it's complicated. Yeah. It takes long, so we cut this Turner side.
Yeah. This is kind of interesting because, again, Francis Hearn says that play, again in 1976, gained significance in the rise of late capitalism and neoliberalism in the 1970s. So historically, if you might not know, but I'm a media studies professor and work on video games, but 1970s is really the beginning of video games, right? Early video game systems like Atari and a lot of experimentation with games. It's also a really strong period of growth for board gaming and play, and toy production is something else I study. The growth of the toy industry at this time is very huge. And so the 1970s is kind of important, but Hearn writes in the 1970s that Advanced capitalism, despite possessing the required capabilities, fails to diminish the sphere of necessity. In these circumstances, play gains significance, for in play, prevailing constraints are annihilated, however temporarily, and the realm of necessity superseded. So this is kind of complex, but again, the sphere of necessity is the sphere of labor, of work, right? So Hearn is saying that advanced capitalism fails to lessen the amount of hours we work. In fact, we're working more, you know? So advanced capitalism, despite possessing the requisite capabilities, meaning that capitalism generates a lot of wealth, you know, in some societies, right? Especially from where Hearn was writing, but it doesn't diminish that labor, right? And so in these circumstances, play gains significance because people realize that their working life is intensified. It's not going to be shortened. So play becomes a place for annihilating, however temporarily, the realm of necessity, superseding it. So we play board games, we play video games, we, you know, escape, right? Escapism, right? And I think it's interesting because, you know, some people might say, well, video games come from technology. We developed computers and then we built these into video games. But if you think about it critically, right, through these kind of lens, the reason games and we are all playing games and so forth today is because we haven't been able to reduce the realm of necessity, right? And so play, or we haven't been able to overcome the divide between necessity and freedom. And so we play these games to escape.
Yes, to escape the necessity and to bring up again to compare the traditional society, so-called traditional society, and the modern one. We could add that in the past there were more balance between time using to work and to play, because it was important to spend time playing together and to stay together, to reinforce the community. And in modern life, this was less important because everything was based on produce something, and the things that are waste of time without any producing were considered minor or less efficient or bad for people, right, because they waste time that was more that are better used working, you know. So there is a moral aspect of the play and the work, and in this period was very important this I don't know, moralization of the aspect of the play thing, the play aspect.
Yeah, definitely the moralization of it, and also maybe the waning of certain kind of more traditional or pre-modern festivities and so forth, where play would annihilate the realm of labor, like in festivals or carnival, if you've read Bakhtin or something like that. In 1976, at least in Western industrialized nations, maybe not, we're not talking about the global south and everything, but work becomes intensified and becomes more and more important, right, labor.
But there were no balance at all.
Yeah, and there was
completely unbalanced.
Right, and so there might still be carnivals and festivals that overturn the moments of play that interrupt the work cycle. They lose part of their power.
Those parts of the power and were commodified also. So.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people have written about the relationship between leisure and work. There's lots of different theories about it, especially, you know, since the 1970s, but before then, with Adorno and Horkheimer writing the famous Dialectic of Enlightenment. typically in this argument, it's a lot about leisure because it's about also the entertainment industries. But generally, we might sum it up in various ways that they're noticing the leisure is very alienated. That is, it's not play connected to the world or social people, but it's a commodified form of consumption. And also things that we might consider playful or leisure time activities like going to see a movie or going to see a theater production. They become industrialized in a way that they become instrumentalized, that the processes of work to make things efficient are applied to these things. So Hollywood, right, can make the same movie again and again because they have a standardized detective narrative or a standardized melodrama, right? And so, you know, the work efficiency are applied to cultural production.
We played about being a part of this dialectic with work was commodified. So it's there is no escape from this machine, you know, because you work a lot to produce, and then you have to work a lot to consume, because it's another work to consume and to entertain yourself and being part of this. This machine of the entertainment, you know, so there is no balance in your life where you can be free, where you can share things with others without any purposes, with only to feel joy or freedom, you know.
Yeah, you're working in your time off to shop and do other things that you need to live in your everyday life, or you're buying products like Monopoly or board games, are increasingly in a capitalist society, which are alienated products, which just go back to support the capitalist system. And one of the biggest arguments they make too, that is a difficult one to overcome, is one of the reasons they didn't talk about leisure and play is they just saw it as already an instrument, a leisure, time off, right, away from work, or play, you know, or go join a sports team after work or something, or do your exercises after work or whatnot, right? This was just a way to get people to rest and recuperate for more labor time. So it's kind of a hard point to grasp, but it's just saying that leisure and play were an instrument to support more labor and more work. So the sphere of freedom was just always trying to secure the sphere of necessity.
That's the sphere that grows.
Right.
It's the opposite. So you need money to spend in entertainment or in playing activity and so on. So they are completely part of the system.
But from a descriptive point of view, do you agree with this description? Is it true that works like this?
Yes.
That's why we're here. Talk to you in a seminar. I think that people are, you know, trying to think through these problems, you know. Personally, I think it's a lot more complex than that, you know, especially today, but it's good to know this historical background and their theories of, or this common argument that labor and, that leisure and play were just supporting the labor process. So we can think a little bit more deeply about the complexities that are happening today in the world and how that has changed, you know, how that might be true sometimes, but in other times not. I mean, if you think about it, like, you know, some people might play video games for 30 or 40 hours a week, you know, more than their regular work, you know. Is it really possible that that's recuperating them and resting so they can work more? You know, there's something more interesting going on.
Yes. So on my side, I could add that I've been teaching playing and education since 2007 in this university. And in the first, I think, 7-8 years, I try to balance and put more play in the life of people because I suggest students you should play more, you should have fun because of this needs of balance, between work activities that are too much and everything is related to consumerism and so on. And then somehow I understand that the game was more related, I think, to this process, and I start studies in a critical way. Oh, but game and play are more related to consumerism than work. So you can think about work of something that you have to get rid of because it's tiring, or annoying, and you don't feel play like something you have to escape. So it's more dangerous. So I started studying and to study deeper the problem of alienation, escapism, and so on in game and play. So that's why I met Braxton, because he's one of the most important theorists of critical play in. Yes, you are. Because I just had this anecdote because I was talking in a seminar, not in a congress, and one person said, "Oh, you talk like Braxton Soderman." This when you said things like this, so I say, "Oh, okay, I have a look at this guy because maybe."
I think it was great. We look up with us, and it's wonderful because we can have conversations like this and build up like thoughts together.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say too, like I think that question, one of the scarier things is at least under this model where you're like, okay, we have labor and then we have leisure. There's some sort of idea that we need leisure and rest to recuperate for work, right? Today, it's almost like they're like, you know what? They don't need rest. They don't need relaxation. Actually, people will work much more, 10, 12 hours a day and so forth, right? So people studying exhaustion or, some of the work I've done, like about overcoming fatigue through flow, or just the fact that we start working at home, whereas texting people at 10 o'clock at night, writing emails on Saturday and Sunday morning, these kind of breakdowns between the divide between work and leisure. It showed us that actually, that theory might be kind of wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if we have to go into these so deeply, but there's just lots of different ways. These are just some of them that people, critical theorists, have tried to think about the relationship between the realm of necessity and the realm of freedom, that is work and play. For example, another Frankfurt School person, Herbert Marcuse, wanted to discover the realm of freedom in labor and not merely beyond it, which means basically, let's have fun with our labor. Like, okay, we're always going to have to work and hard. So the only way to find freedom is to kind of enjoy our work and find freedom within that. Csikszentmihalyi, who was somebody that we both studied and written about, wanted to show that work and play could actually be the same thing, that maybe they weren't opposites and they weren't something that there was a clear distinction between them, but both could be intrinsically enjoyed and experienced, right? So this is kind of in the 1970s, a big, realization that more people were making, where that, work can be fun, and play can be work, but also that like maybe these terms aren't something that this distinction is not helping us, in a way.
No, we found the distinction between more interesting, the distinction between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So you could do both. You could work or play for with intrinsic motivation, so with no purposes, or you could work and sometimes play with an extrinsic motivation. You know, work is simple to understand for extrinsic motivation, so for purposes that are outside the activity, and but also play could be an activity that you might do for extrinsic motivation, because everybody knows about something about gamification, you know. So put some game elements in non-game activities, or for example, game-based learning is you game or you play with an extrinsic motivation to learn something more or better, or with less effort. So this is for us, for me, but I think also for you, Braxton, a distinction very important. So the purposes of the activities more than work and leisure time, especially in this period of this neoliberalism period,
Right.
where they are really mixed.
Yeah, they become very mixed and more mixed. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, she sent me how I really wanted to kind of be like, well, if you're really absorbed in playing something, an activity, but you're also, there's these people like surgeons who study surgeons who are really absorbed in their work, right? And it's the same kind of feeling that they're both having. Then why do we talk about work and play? Let's just talk about that absorbed experience and say it can be experienced in work, in play, you know, in these different things. And we really don't need to talk about work and play anymore, if you think about it. Other people, I won't talk about. Francis Hearn wanted to politicize play as political in interesting ways. Others thought that play and work would disappear, like after the Marxist revolution or the social revolution. We would just not have these terms anymore. We'd have something else, new forms of activity. I'm interested in this, like thinking, you know, it's kind of an interesting thought experiment. Like, what would that activity be? It's not work, but it's not play. It's not work. It's not leisure. Somebody I like is Lawrence Hinman in the 1970s wrote about what he called unalienated praxis. So I'm not going to go into this. It's like Marxist terminology. Praxis is kind of action. Unalienated would be kind of free praxis. But this unalienated praxis would be like what happens after the revolution. So the theoretical term, critical term, but it's, I don't know what it is. There's no example of it. Like that's what's interesting. What's an example?
Somehow related to the utopia, we will
Yeah,
talk at
right.
the end.
Yeah,
So,
yes. Yeah.
no, after that. But it's the point of our,
Yeah,
of our
exactly.
perspective.
Yeah, so maybe we'll have some ideas on what unalienated praxis might be. Huh?
Then through this out.
You have to wait.
Yeah.
Unalienated.
Don't think long. Yeah, so a few contemporary positions. There's just people that respond to these divisions between work and labor in different ways. If I jump to the second one, Roberts writes about the politics of playtime. So this is just like the idea, like, okay, you know, what we really need to do is organize in unions, organize to lower working time. Instead of 40-hour jobs, we have 30-hour jobs, and we fight for 20-hour jobs, and we fight for working, you know, 15 hours a week, and that's it. And he's like, that way you increase your freedom, the amount of time you have for freedom, and you lower the time you're working. And he's like, this is what we need to do, right? Sebastian Dieterding might talk about what's, you know, this idea that necessity work becomes alienated. And so what happens is we make it more fun and playful, so it's less alienated. So, you know, maybe we make our work more gamified, right? Or more playful, or we, what was our example? We had an example before. But you you just transform the work so it's more bearable in playful ways, right? You find some freedom within the work that you're doing, the necessity. But then he says that after a while, this freedom that you have, this kind of fun way you've transformed work, becomes alienating and boring. So then it becomes necessity again, right? It just becomes something we have to do in our work. And then we find more creative, playful reconfiguration. So it's really a cyclical process that happens forever and ever and ever. For those who might be more Marxist thinkers or something, this isn't very comfortable because we want to be able to have a kind of revolutionary beyond, you know, if not utopia, at least, you know, some sort of way to get us out of this cycle, which can be very alienating itself and tiring. And other people talk about how work is gamified and play is used in order to exploit workers and make them enjoy their exploitation. So, hey, we're not paying you more money, but we've gamified your work and made it into a game. So you'll have a lot of fun, you know, serving coffee when you're trying to beat your the other employees in the point system we've created or whatever it is, right? So, and maybe you'll be more productive because you're having fun, but we won't pay you more, you know, but you'll be more productive, but you're not going to get more money and you'll be having fun. So, you know, Ray will talk about how you really.
Maybe at the end of the century, was fashionable to have a playground or playroom in companies where you could rest from hard work and then in a lot of companies, I think Google or also Microsoft have a space like this. But they are, of course, they have extrinsic motivation because they want to be more creative, you know, because they know that playing involves somehow innovation or creation and creativity, and imagination. So, let's play. So you can work more, or you can be more productive after your playtime, you know. So.
Yeah, this is kind of like a Bernard Horkheimer who was saying that play needed to be more about rest and leisure, and then you work more. So in these companies, like you're saying, hey, we have a playroom, or here's an arcade. You can rest and recuperate at the location and space of work. So you never go home. No. You stay at that location, right? So it's an intensification of that kind of logic, right? Which again, let's make you work 24 hours a day. We'll just make sure we have a cafeteria to serve you food here and these kind of places to rest and recuperate.
Before we talk about the example of a candidate, the pressure plan, maybe is another aspect, the big fish and the little fish. It is not listed in this slide. The example we made.
Maybe the next slide.
Last month.
Yeah.
I remember exactly you mentioned.
I think so. We'll see.
Right.
But yeah, this is the last thing. Some people talk about how play and work just don't make sense today. You can talk about work being playful or play being workful play. Like a lot of times play is actually hard work, right? It's if you're grinding or leveling up a character, you're doing the same repetitive tasks again and again and again, hours and hours and hours. Some people grind up their characters and work more hours a week than in their actual jobs, right? I've heard some people in the Animal Crossing, you know, will hire people to come in and clean their island because they don't have enough time to actually do that kind of labor themselves. So they'll pay somebody to come and take care of their island for them while they're gone, so the island doesn't fall into decay, right? So in this case, you're actually paying somebody
To play for you.
to play for you, but they're working. Yeah. So that gets us in the next slide. But it gets complex.
5 or 6 years ago, this was a big deal. This hiring people to increase your, I don't know, factory or things like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's going away. I think it's just mutating and expanding into different locations.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this kind of expands on that a bit. I mean, this is just another example of somebody, Jody Dean, this theorist, political theorist, who talks about communicative capitalism, talking about play and work. And it says, communicative capitalism, the repetitions of drive suggest work without work, which is interesting to think about, in the forms of work without pay or work that is fun, and play without play, in the forms of play for which one is paid and play for which one pays with enjoyment. So it's kind of, these are different formulations of what might be happening now, where it's, you know,
An example of work without working.
well, yeah, work without pay, right? Free labor, we know what that is, like online digital, like you write a review for Amazon, a book, or you write a review on Yelp for a restaurant, or nobody's paying you. You're not compensated for your work, you're just doing it. So you're doing free labor. So that's work without pay.
And the platform gain from your work.
Yeah, Amazon gains so much from like all our labor. And you know, same with Yelp and everything. Platforms, you know, this is what they are. They vampire free labor and suck the labor from us and not pay us for it, and then monetize it.
And play without play is the example we already made.
Yeah. Well, the work.
So you are playing, but you pay
The work-
someone to do your work.
Right, paid play. Yeah, paid play and it's paid play without play, partying on Twitch. You might not know play to earn games today. If you're a game person, play to earn games are games actually where the whole idea is that play is compensated. Usually this is done through cryptocurrency in different ways. The idea is if you add value to your character or you add value to, you know, an island that you're building in Minecraft or the sandbox or something, then that value should be yours to keep. So it's changing the whole idea of play, where we don't do it for intrinsic motivations. We do it for extrinsic motivations. Well, I'm playing because I'm increasing the value of my character in my island. And so then it really becomes work a little bit. Yeah.
And also another example we made before is that while we were talking about is in games, in casual games like Clash of Clans or Clash Royale and so on. Maybe you don't pay to play, but you are a little fish for big fish that pay for I don't know, having bigger weapons or army and so on, and they allow you to play because you are the people that play, the rich people play who, you know.
Right.
You're gonna lose for sure.
Not always, because you know, they have to keep the balance, because if the rich one always win, they get boring playing. So there is still some playing, but it's for extrinsic purpose for other people, because especially for digital playing is owned by companies. So you play, but you are played.
Yeah.
Because they earn with your play, and not as a product. You know, I buy a game and I play my game like a toy. You know, you can play a video game and it's a product, but it's not that. This is only a peak. I don't know, because the most important thing that you are playing an experience. And you are part of an experience that they sell to others. So you are the character. You let the game grow.
I think you're still doing free labor for them. You don't know it, you're enjoying yourself, you think you're playing, but you're doing labor for them, like by occupying a position as the small fish that gets eaten, and you don't really know it. It could be related to what Jody Dean says here with
Yes.
where it's forms of play without play, where she says, one pays with enjoyment, which is hard to understand what is meant there, but it seems like, what one idea might be, one is enjoying playing this game, right? But really, your enjoyment is being kind of commodified by this company, right? You're paying for this game by your enjoyment.
I have another example. I told you that I played a lot Ingress. Was an online game for a massive online game located, geolocated. And it's Ingress, not a thing now, it's old, I don't know, 15 years ago, and was from Niantic, is a company part of Google. And the players, they should have built some portal, because was the narrative is there was a war between two parts, simple, long story short. And you have to build portals in the actual territory, and then you have to conquer this portal. And there was different groups that conquered this portal. And all the world was divided in two groups. Excitement and I don't remember, rebels, something like this. And after we played, and there was a community also in Milano, we met a lot, so we built friendship and so on. And we built a lot of portal in Milano, but also when we traveled, we built portal and we conquered portal and so on. And then 5 years later, they use all this platform to build Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
So we built basically Pokemon Go platform. They don't do anything, The players, the gamers did it for them.
Was a project from the beginning? Or?
Yes, I think so. Yes, of course, because Ingress was for free, Otherwise, Pokemon Go.
There's
Things says,
I would have to look it up, but in the game community, there was just another story about the same thing. Pokemon Go data becoming map data or whatever. They sold it all or something. So the next iteration has happened. I'd have to look it up, but it was 6 months ago or something.
but Niantic was part of the Google company.
Maybe that's what you're talking about. Yeah, so basically play becomes very complex in its relationship to work and labor. It's not as easy as just saying there's a division between the two, wrought by the modern industrialization of society, or just the idea of labor and leisure being separate spheres. Obviously, we're in a postmodern world where they blur all the time. Thinking through these issues is an important part of what critical theory does, right? Especially if we're in the mission of trying to think about emancipation, freedom. Remember, this is how we started. Critical theory is trying to do that, reach that sort of freedom. Not to throw in another mix to this, but definition of play itself, theoretical definitions of play, also bring up freedom and constraint quite a bit, which can be related to this freedom and necessity. So I don't know, it's just something, if you're interested in critical theory, you can think about, Huizinga talked about play is free and is in fact freedom. Roger Caillois wrote a book called Man and Games, is that it? Play Games. Famously said, play is free within the limits set by the rules. So you see here, there's freedom, but there's necessity, kind of these in a dialectic, and then game designers have used this idea, play as a free movement within a more rigid structure. And so play itself seems to be something between the realm of necessity or rigid constraints, right, and total freedom.
Yes.
You know, in the interaction, the fulcrum, the combination of these two things, which is, you know, interesting to think about.
Yes, especially the silent moving one, the last part of the slide.
Right.
Because plays a free movement within a more rigid structure. This is true also in Italian. So we use the term gioco when two different things are played together, and they play because there is some freedom, but also they are related. So without any relationship, they are not playing together. You know, the screw and the
Such
yes, the screw and the
Screwdriver.
yes,
Screwdriver and the screw and the hole.
and the hole. Yes,
I made this, the screw and the hole.
the hole.
Right.
The screw and the hole is the same. So if there is no faith,
Yes.
they don't play. There is no movement. If they are two separate, so they are freedom, but there is no relationship between them. So you have to stay in balance with the freedom and the movements. So this is a very good point. This aspect of the play also right? Yeah. And also in our language.
Yeah.
Gioco. Fa gioco, non fa gioco.
Right. That's so wonder. I mean, one wonders. I mean, I don't really have a way to easily connect this to idea of the realm of freedom and necessity. Marxist or critical theory terms. Maybe that's something I want to think about more in the future. But it is true that if play relates to these things, that freedom and constraints, they're always related. There's always some sort of rigid rules and or not rules, but more rigid aspects to this freedom, and this is what play is. You know, like it seems like there's no way to get beyond that, you know, like you know, to get to reduce the realm of necessity so we can be free, you know what I mean? But there'll always be some sort of structure, rigid structure that freedom is kind of fighting against, you know what I mean? Instead of like this more hopeful utopic
Yes.
vision of like, you know, freeing ourselves finally, maybe from the rigidity, you know?
That's why we jump in the jump. Super.
Now we jump to talk a little bit about it.
So we jump.
This is speculative, so we'll be coming to an end, but
Yes. But I think it's related to this topic because this author, Bernard Schultz, who wrote this book, The Grasshopper, is the name of the book in English.
which Francesca translated into Italian.
Yeah, 4 years ago. And he's a philosopher of game and play.
Co-translated, I should say. Or did you translate it from Marissa?
No.
Oh, okay.
Did on my own.
Okay.
And okay. And is edited by me and Marisa.
Got it.
Okay.
My mistake.
No, don't worry. And this is part of the definition because this book is about the definition of what a game is, and then what is play. Because you know, in Italian, gioco is only one word, but in English there are two words. There are maybe three because there's play, that's the activity of playing, and there is game, there are actual artifacts, games, plural, and there is also gambling. And we have only one word for the three of them.
scommettere.
Gambling is, yes, azzardo. Gioco d'azzardo. So this book is about the definition of game, and he used this definition against Wittgenstein definition of using games to the non-definitional philosophy, you know, and so was against Wittgenstein, this book, and he said that you can simply define games as the activities in which you use an effort to overcome boundaries you do without any necessity, you know, something like this. And so you are willing to do this overcoming of the boundaries. So this book go in deep with the philosophy or the distinction between game and play and work, and stress this point. So what's the meaning of work? What's the meaning of play? And okay, at the end of the book, this philosopher who was teaching to his student, there were ants. So there is involved also the fable of the ants and the grasshopper, that we properly translate cicala and formiche, not cavallette, because cicala is the right animal, because the cicala sings, and also the grasshopper doesn't. But in the northern region, they translate the grasshopper because they don't have cicala, of course. And grasshopper is very lively. Yeah, no, lively is very don't spread leisure, but to jump and so on. Okay, but it takes us to another story. And at the end of this book, when he tried to explain this definition of playing activities, he says, okay, let's imagine then, let's imagine that all instrumental activities of human beings have been eliminated. All of the things ordinarily called work are now done, and by a wholly automated machine, which are activated solely by mental telepathy. So that not even a minimum stuff is necessary for the housekeeping chore of society. And then also he tried to imagine that all the problem of the world was solved, or the things were discovered, or the art was already made. So now, the things we said before, what the purpose of existence? Maybe we will get bored, or we try to self-gratify ourselves with the activity of self-gratifying, such as this kind of game that are not related to your freedom, but to use your time in order to not be bored. So what's the point of existence? If we finish our work, why is still worth living? So
Yes. This is the same that he talks about games as what we'd be doing afterwards. Yeah.
yes, so he yes.
Oh.
So we have two computers. So this is the position, the possibility he puts out, that if everything is already done, you don't all the needs are fulfilled, we maybe should play together, because play is something that you do in order to not gain something. So you not play for extrinsic motivation, but only for intrinsic motivation. And when you play, you have no goal, you have no purposes that are needed for become something more, or produce more, or have more in a materialistic way. but you are focused only on overcome yourself. If all the purposes are fulfilled. So that's why the grasshopper thought that overcome yourself is something that is a purpose itself that has intrinsic motivation, because you want to be more than you are. So it refers me to the Paulo Freire philosophy that human beings want to be more. Surmise is to be more fully human. So you want to, why all these efforts? Only to produce things? No, because intrinsic motivation is to not only to do things for let the time goes, over to pass for pastime, but to overcome your own boundaries, to overcome your limits, but with an intrinsic purposes, but to increase, friendship, and to fulfill your need to be loved, being appreciated, and be valued from other people.
Mhm.
So that's bring us in the side of, I think, the alienation in a different way. So we thought alienation always in a bad way. So alienation is alienated from the world, and so you are involved in something that prevent you from something that you need to conserve, to preserve. But there is also a good side of alienation, in which you are not fulfilled only with, living, but you need to overcome things and to understand more and to be more related to others and so on. So this need, this need to be more, this desire, this is related to others, important philosopher, of course, the machine of desire, is a good part of don't feel yourself without any purposes, even though you don't have extrinsic purposes. So the point of this book is to understand that play and game, they have to be freed from the neoliberalism circle, but also could free us from the circle of labor and extrinsic motivation, and they can teach us how to change our perspective, our purposes completely. So this utopia that is in the word of Bernard Schultz is similar of utopia of the revolution, or the warm side of the Marxism. Like Bloch said that you should hope for something more than
Right.
materialistic way and so on. So
Yeah.
I talk a lot.
No. Yeah, I think that's this is related to this post-revolutionary world, whatever this community might be, or whatever the way we organize society after, the capitalist kind of exploitation has been removed or something like that. But it's not, Bernard Sweet's book is a philosophical kind of exploration of whatever the ideal existence might be. And it's interesting that he comes to play and games as like one of those possibilities for what we will do, I think from a more political or Marxist perspective, that idea of like, what would that, again, non-alienated praxis be? What would something beyond work that also play?
Yes, or alienated in a good way.
Yeah. So he says non-alienated, but we could say good alienated, something. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've always wondered what that kind of would be. I mean, it's like impossible to think utopia, it's like a thought experiment. It's an alternative, an imagination of something. So even his concept of non-alienated praxis is trying to reach at something. Just as Bernard Sweets is trying to reach at something here too. So, yeah.
And there are also these gift theories.
Yeah, you can talk about the gift theories. Yeah, I mean, this would also be something. But we used to talk about the gift thing.
Okay, and then we close with this
Okay.
question.
I mean,
Because I thought we thought that it's somehow related to the theorists, the scholar of the gift economy, such as Marcel Mauss, Bataille, the funds of Bataille, and also for the Huizinga, that study, for example, rituals at potluck that are wasting of goods and wasting of time, wasting of everything, that taught us that there are things that we do for purposes that are not materialistic, So we should stress more this aspect of the different economy, of different culture, in order to understand play and game, because play and game are more related to this aspect. There is also, so that the depends of Bataille, for instance, is really related to this utopia of Bernard Suisse. And also Huizinga and Ludens, but also Marcel Mauss, the essays on gift, they talked about the same aspect, because remember we talked in the very beginning of the seminar of the rituals that are that were in the traditional society, and in these rituals the aspect of the intrinsic motivation was really important, not the materialistic way of them. So, and another aspect is the Levinas concept of evasion, escapism in a good way. So escapism for Levinas is not a bad or a good way. It was something that we do in order to escape the being world. So I think these authors, these scholars could teach us something important in order to explain what this utopia could be, and explain that the dialectics between game and play and work is more deep than effort and leisure,
Right.
But it involves several aspects of life. So
yeah, it has to. I mean, yeah, it's beyond labor and leisure. It's beyond. I mean, the fact that we're talking about all these blurring categories between playful work and workful play, and play that is work, or Jody Dean's talking about work that's not work, play that's not play. Obviously, there's a discursive failure there, right? To describe what's happening in new terminology. Like, we're coming up against the limits of, what play means. If we say, well, it's play without play. I mean, in English, that sounds crazy, right? Okay. And so it's because there's no language for this kind of thing. So that's like why I was interested in the Hinman saying unalienated praxis, because it's like also weird, and what does that mean? I mean, you can think about it in terms of Marxist terms, but the gift economy too. We were talking about gratuity and the roots of the gratitude and gratuity as free, right? Freedom.
Freedom also, yes.
Freedom. And the gift economy. Francesca knows more about the gift economy theories than I do, but there seems to be like maybe something to start approaching a way to talk about some sort of activity and work that's, that's maybe more utopic and beyond this world of work and leisure that we're leaving behind here.
Yes. Also because it's related to freedom, because gratuity is free in English, so we try to find a word for this. But of course, freedom is important, but it's not that freedom.
Yeah.
So it's the gift. Maybe the gift is the right word, because also surround these two aspects of the word. The gift is both the present, the gift, and also the poison in German. It means both. So it's not something idealistic thing, the gift economy. It's important, because otherwise you think, okay, utopia is a place without any effort, any difficulties, and we just play together and so on. But it's not like that. It's something that is related to relationship and links between people and communities. And so play is something that they put people together,
Yeah.
not alienate. But also alienation has both sides, I think. Not only in a bad way, because otherwise, without any alienation, we just stay like this, okay, and fulfilled.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
I desire more.
Yeah. That's utopia. Like, that's why we think about utopia, because we desire more. We want more. We want something outside of this life. We want to be alienated to this horrible thing that's happening over here in a sense, or whatever. So, I mean, there's a good alienation, like escaping reality through video game playing or play, like Herm said, also has a good side to it. It points to the frustration with everyday life and the political failures of that world. So yeah, so I think, yeah, it's important to hold on to that idea that there's good alienation. Again, we're in that area of paradox and oxymorons, like words that don't seem to make sense, together. I mean, it's like, when you start thinking about utopia or post-revolution or like moving beyond work and play, you lose your words, and you realize you're in a realm where you have to do critical thinking or critical theory to understand how the world is changing. So, and maybe gift, is a way to think through, and gratuity in a discursive way, some new formation that gets us beyond work and play as the only terms that seem to be not sharp terms anymore. They're blunt terms. They're not useful almost.
So we end with a question. What do you think utopia would look like in terms of work and play? What do we do with utopia? What activities will we do? So we ask.
Or any other question.
Or any other question or any other thing. Thank you. We left space for discussion and question. I don't know.
Thank you. That's it.
I'm starting with questions. I think we can have many questions. Until utopia, would look like in terms of what we play. Well, for sure, it has to be very different from our present. I think there is also this problem. I have this sort of problem with the term of utopia. Let's say that I think that to give a content to utopia, from where we are now, is very difficult, because you risk, no matter how careful you are, you risk projecting something that you have here. Your mind structure, you have a certain idea of what is good and what is not good, right? So you risk always to project something. And, if you want to think of utopia, something quite totally different from the present. I tend to think that maybe it's just it's better to be there and think about it when you are there. But of course, you also need to project something in terms of a goal. Otherwise, you need something to move you towards something else. But so there is this sort of ambivalence that when you talk, you want it to be something totally or kind of stand towards the end of his life, the nostalgia of the completely other, totally different, right? And with this, of course, religious overtone. And but it's difficult, and I think that this is actually there is sort of a Teoria in Utopia that actually makes it very easy. But otherwise, it's not an easy concept. And so when I think about freedom from work, that kind of new reality that some of us hope for, right? So I have difficulties thinking about it because I kind of say, okay, wait, it will have to be a matter of collectively deciding what it is, but once you are there, because you also have to free yourself from the structures you are embedded in your mind. And so this is a small reflection of Utopia. And talking about neoliberalism, you mentioned neoliberalism. And my very simple question would be, do you think that play in neoliberalism has been totally subsumed by the logic of capitalist accumulation or not? Or do you think that there are still places, activities that are actually non-contaminated by the spirit of, let's say, capital in neoliberalism? Because I cannot think of really ways of playing or realms that are untouched in this logic. And this is very difficult. Now this is very annoying to me, because I agree that play is very important activity, grow up, experiment. But for example, if you look at young people in school, they play, but there is always already there sort of logic of competitiveness, and the way in which play is used in but in corporations, etc. But always within the logic of being competitive. So we are stronger together, yes, but to compete with. So what do you think of this? Is that space for neoliberalized space?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think that Francesca would probably be an expert, and maybe more hopeful on it than what I would say. But yeah, I think you should respond first.
And then I think that there are a lot of space for play in another sense, in another way, not completely imbued in this neoliberalism, because we are free. We are free to choose. We are free to choose where to play, with whom to play, and so on. So there are like bubbles of free play in our activities. Every time we steal time for our labor, of our activities, also playing in this mood, in this way, we are free to use our time, I don't know, playing instruments or singing or laugh with people that we love, or playing, in a park. And this is play for me. So doing things without any purposes, only for the sake of it. So my definition of play is like this. It's like Bernard Stultz, overcome things in order to only for the sake of it. So, and this is our salvation, that we have playtime, really playtime, But it's very difficult because it is colonized, and every aspect. They would like to colonize every aspect of our day. Then the power, I don't know, the companies, they want to colonize every aspect of our life. So it's very hard now to keep this moment freed from this kind of and also I think it's very dangerous for our children because of course they are the source of the play, the source of the power of play, but also they are very vulnerable. So when we put a digital device in their hands, the problem is that there are people who design this device in order to obtain their attention and not let them be free to create.
And so they canalize or they orient in a certain way.
Yes. But I think it's also a natural thing you do when you are I know, stressed or tired. You want to be free to spend time doing things without any purposes. And but you should be, I think, educated to do this. This is what I try to teach my students. Be more free, think about doing things that you like without any purposes, and call it the good things, you know. The good things for you, not good in a moral way, that can feel you. And for instance, and there are other two things, sorry, because it's very important. Because they the companies and the neoliberalism factor understand and discover the power of playing, you know, and you study this a lot, the power of the flow theory, and they know with design how to keep you very strong related to these activities they release, you know. So okay, you should be very careful. And yes, the second thing is that I always teach to my student and say to my student, please consider to left some time in your day long on your own to do something. And this is a treasure, you know, because when you understand that there is something that you do only for not for you in a selfish way, but maybe with others you love.
For the sake of doing it.
For the sake of doing it with others is important. For example, the last one, there was a movement, the new games movement in the 70s that tried to spread around this knowledge. Oh, we should play more together in parks and without any toys, you know, only with our bodies, without any commodities. So they try to teach people to how to play together in a traditional way, you know, playing of the tradition, hide and seek, play like this. So maybe in the childhood you could find something that is the secret of the playing thing, you know. And I think I try to teach that in childhood is not something we have in the past, but it's something that we could think about a promise in the future. So you don't have to go back to your childhood, but to become as a child in order to obtain this freedom. It's not in an idealistic way, you know.
It's carving out some space in your to be like.
Sorry.
No, that's great. That's why it's like you're the expert on this kind of question. That was wonderful. I think hearing you talk about, I tell my students this, or that you're saying people have to be educated about carving out this kind of space at time. Also shows us that play is just political now.
Yes.
Like when you say, is there any space left for play that's been uncontaminated? You know what I mean? Well, this idea of uncontaminated, originary play that's somehow positive and productive of pure creativity or something, I think that's something we can no longer really believe in. But play becomes political in the sense that we have to struggle over it. We have to teach students to find this time, you know, or somebody like Robert saying we have to struggle to lower the leisure time or the necessary work time so we get more time for play. So that's one thing that I would say, that play has become a struggle and political to try to, you know, salvage it or to.
Is a resistant praxis.
Huh?
Is a resistance.
A resistance.
Praxis.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, some people think play. That's another thing that we might say too, that there is an aspect of play that's imaginary, creative. So somebody like Francis Hearn would talk about, well, play is really useful, again, politically, because it can help us imagine alternatives in the future, right?
Oh, yes.
So if utopia or other political dimensions that aren't capitalism is about imagining futures, then play can be a useful activity for playfully imagining those different kind of futures, you know. So play can be politically useful in a way too. But yeah, I'm reluctant to think that there's some pure play that's, you know, that neoliberalism hasn't touched yet, you know what I mean?
I don't think that it,
Yeah. But that's okay, because now play is just another location of struggle.
Yeah, I think maybe the never was original.
Right. I mean, if you study deconstruction or
Thinking about neoliberal, specifically neoliberal strategies, because obviously under neoliberals, the boundaries are different. Under industrial capitalism. So Marcuse was thinking of industrial capitalism, and Durkheim was thinking of a sequence where you have disciplinary work, like you were working in factories or offices, but there was time to work and then time for leisure time. So probably was how to recreate the workforce for, and now boundaries are blurred, so everything is different under neoliberalism. You know, Jonathan Craig talks about 24/7 capital. I believe this is a perfect way of putting it. 24/7, always on capitalism.
right.
And so you're always working, if you're not working in the office, but you're thinking about when you go back in the office and now what the ideas you can have, put them to work and etc. And that's so it's different. And play is used differently today. The 70s, right? And so we're thinking about this specific difference, but I do think that you're right. It can be location for struggle. So the idea of carving out space, I think it's perfect, and it recalls me, I mean, it reminds me of the way in which Frankfurt School thoughts about art.
Yes,
Now,
you can
because
say.
go back to Schiller and Kant were thinking about play as that moment of freedom. Kant was saying something like, well, when there's a playful moment between imagination and understanding, then the structure of cognition is free from the duty of no, right? And Schiller said at that moment of playful relationship is where art.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. Sublime but also beautiful. Beautiful. You have a sense of play between our faculties. So this is, which means that your faculties are not activated in order to do something. I think it's perfect. Art and play, that's
Art and play are the same in this sense.
I knew I would say that because I was thinking of your investment in art also in the new degree in art. I think that what is the relationship? This must be the relationship.
Yes, there is a cave. You recently yesterday painted about the cave, prehistoric cave, where there are ants on the wall, and the title was now the title this exhibition put on this expo, you know, is Lascaux cave, was how we start playing. How that is when we start playing. So yes, doing something for the sake of it. So art is basically the same. is how we, but this is driven by the desire of something else, something more. Not only to be like the other animals, you know. We need something to fulfill our desire. So we need to. And for example, I was thinking about, I always show to my students videos from this very strange orchestra made of vegetables, you know, the vegetable orchestra. That people playing with the vegetables, and it's fantastic. And they always are, they're complaining, oh, they waste a lot of vegetable doing nothing. And I say, that's the point. It's wasting. It's not producing nothing, because it's related to the gift economy. You know, you have to use things in order to be more happy. You know, and but if we are in the mood of economy of capitalism, so something that is used not to produce food is wasted. No, it's not wasted. It's very useful. But they're only, but it's, I have a lot of stuff like this, people who do something with a lot of wasted money, time, and so on, without any purposes.
I have a question about animals, because once I heard a philosophy teacher saying that we can define humans with play. Playing is the defining characteristic of human, and in fact, animals don't play. I was quite disappointed. And what do you think about it?
Yeah, that's not the typical, that seems strange. I would want to know what the philosophers' arguments were, why animals don't play, and yeah, I mean.
For instance, Oitzinga said that we don't know. Animals didn't wait for us to teach them to play, because animals play. I have tons of videos, animals play.
And Bateson writes about animals play.
Yes, and otherwise, animals taught Bateson how to play and what is play.
Right.
So it's completely the opposite. So
some people will ontologize things and say that, well, play is the being of the universe. You know what I mean? And that puts like this, you know, you were laughing and talking about the screw and the hole and the, you know, the play of the mechanism or whatever. So some people will be.
yeah, no, there's sense. I said that all the universe is
This logo stuff.
Just we can do things without purpose. That was the argument. And animals can. So they can play, because play is doing something without a purpose.
So the argument is that it's biologically important for them in some evolutionary way, and so, but for us, we can play and it's not.
They always do things without purpose, like Usa, the dog of chicks.
Oh, I'd say.
Sorry,
Sorry, yeah. Just somebody that we write about, Csikszentmihalyi, talks about their dog, and it becomes a key way of the dog and how it plays with him, to theorize the idea of love and immersion and involvement. So dogs and animals appear, you know, in the history of talking about play quite often too, which is interesting to think about how they're represented and so forth. I do think Huizinga pushes aside the question that this other philosopher was saying, regardless of whether we can understand if, you know, play has an evolutionary purpose, he says, I'd have to go back and look, but maybe that wasn't interesting to him for some reason, because he was interested in how play built up culture. but I'd have to go back and look. Yeah.
I suppose.
I just disagree. Animals do things without a purpose. They can too. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.